Prices are still rising, the stock market is tanking, and Donald Trump's approval rating has never been lower. And so what's his answer to all of these problems? Send out J.D. Vance. Yeah, that should show you where this administration is at if they think J.D. Vance can make all of their problems go away. But they tried. In a softball interview with the Fox propaganda outlet this morning that J.D. did, but it actually wasn't such a softball interview because he was actually confronted to his face by this Fox host about Donald Trump just crashing the economy, the rising prices that we see, and how upset people are with this disastrous administration. And JD instantly crumbled, and we are going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into that moment of JD being confronted to his face, I want to start with where this interview began. The worst lie I've heard about Social Security from this administration so far.
First of all, that report I saw was total fake news. Yeah. Elon came in and we said, we need you to make government more efficient. We need you to shrink the incredible, vast bureaucracy that thwarts the will of the American people, but also costs way too much money. And we said that's going to take about 6 months. And that's what Elon signed up for. But of course, he's going to continue to be an advisor. And by the way, the work of Doge is not even close to done. The work of Elon is not even close to done. You look at all of the fraudulent grants that they found. You look at people who are 150 years old, who are fraudulently collecting Social Security payments. You see our Social Security system, 40% of the people who are calling in are actually committing fraud.
Where does J.D. Vance even come up with that number? 40% of people who are calling are committing fraud? Social Security has never seen more calls to their administrative offices because people are terrified that Elon Musk is stealing their Social Security, not that they can't scam the government anymore. This idea that millions, tens of millions of people who rely on these checks every month are scamming the government instead of the real fact that Social Security is the most successful program in American history, keeping tens of millions of people out of poverty. This is just absolute nonsense. And the lies didn't stop from J.D. Vance, because when he was asked about the Maryland father who him and Donald Trump unlawfully deported to a prison in El Salvador, the lies kept coming. And we can see that right here.
Your lawyer had on for a second, because they're pointing to one of these cases of a gentleman that they said should not have been deported from El Salvador. They said he was not connected to MS-13. What would you tell them about that case? Because they're saying that this is a person that was a great member of society. You've looked at the court records, you've talked to the men and women on the ground. What can you tell us about that situation?
Well, there have been a few cases out there where the Democrats and the media say, oh, this person was just an innocent father of 3, and then you find out, for example, I think this is the case that you're talking about. Back in 2019, an immigration judge looked at all the evidence, looked at all the data, and concluded that this allegedly innocent person that we sent to El Salvador was actually a member of an MS-13 gang. He had also committed some traffic violations. He had not shown up for some court dates. This is not exactly Father of the Year here. This is a person that we don't think should be in our country. Here's the most important point, though, Lawrence, is whatever the argument is, whatever the justification is, no one doubts, not even the crazy left-wing media criticized the idea that we could deport this person. They just took issue with the reasoning for why we deported this person.
Remember when J.D. Vance was deleting all of its tweets about what he said about this Maryland father who was unlawfully deported? Yeah, it's because he was telling and getting caught in the same lies that he just pushed right there. This is not some MS-13 gang member. He received asylum from a judge. And J.D. Vance is trying to claim that that didn't happen, that they had every right to deport him without due process. And no, J.D., you're not right that no one is opposing that you have the right to deport this person. Sure, under some circumstance, you might have the right to deport someone, but that doesn't mean you can do it without due process. We're not opposing you deporting violent criminals. We are opposing your mass deportation plan that has no accountability and doesn't seem to care about the law and has swept up innocent, lawful, permanent residents to send them and to not care about them once they get there to a torture prison in El Salvador. It is insane that J.D. Vance thinks that he can deport someone for no reason except what? He's in traffic violations? So I went through a stop sign too quickly and now I'm shipped off to a different country I've never been. It's absolute absurdity, and it only got worse when Vance was confronted about crashing the economy.
I also know people that come from our background, they're living paycheck to paycheck.
Of course.
And they want to do the patriotic duty of taking it to these other countries, but it's going to hit them a little bit. They feel. What can you tell the American people that they just can't afford an extra $3 here and there about the government making up the difference from that? Will costs go up at some point? Will this just be temporary? Are we talking 3 months or 6 months?
Well, we certainly hear, and I appreciate, how I grew up.
I know.
I grew up in a family that often did live paycheck to paycheck, and we know a lot of Americans are worried. So we are fighting very hard to bring prices down. We're going to have the biggest deregulation in the history of this country. We're doing a lot of things and already have done a lot of things to lower the cost of energy. You heard the president mention this yesterday. Eggs, when we came in, were at a 10-year high, and all of a sudden they've dropped 60% just in the 2 months of the Trump administration. What I'd ask folks to appreciate here is that we are not going to fix things overnight. Yeah. Joe Biden left us, this is not an exaggeration, Lawrence, with the largest peacetime debt and deficit in the history of the United States of America, with sky-high interest rates. You don't fix that stuff overnight. We know people are struggling. We're fighting as quickly as we can to fix what was left to us, but it's not going to happen immediately. But we really do believe that if we pursue the right deregulation, we pursue those energy cost-reducing policies, yes, people are going to see it in their pocketbook. They're also going to benefit from the fact that foreign countries can't take advantage of us anymore. That means their jobs are going to be more secure.
I don't think you can.
This is such just a non-answer from J.D. Vance. He didn't even really seem prepared for this question, and that's surprising because Fox has done everything they possibly could to help out this administration on the crashing economy. We saw Harris Faulkner just the other day, really one of the worst Fox hosts out there, say that it was patriotic to pay more as prices rise because of Donald Trump. It's patriotic to lose money out of your 401k because Donald Trump is crashing the economy. It's patriotic for America to end a global trade alliance that has led to the most prosperity we have ever seen in the history of this world. Like, these people are moronic, and J.D. Vance sounded equally as stupid as he kind of, the eggs, you didn't fix the egg. What are you talking about? Eggs are lower. Get out of here. This is such BS from J.D. Vance. That's how it always is. There is nothing tangible that they can point to that shows this policy is going to be successful in the moment or long term, because while they talk about farmers, while they talk about manufacturing, they're actively preventing manufacturing from happening, but by cutting huge investments out of the Green Energy and Infrastructure Act that Joe Biden passed. It's the same thing with farmers. Billions of dollars of cuts to USAID that are leaving farmers scrambling, so much so that they might have to bail them out with $28 billion worth of a stimulus. Like, this is insanity from J.D. Vance, and it's why Adam Schiff called it out right here.
This is going to be a disaster for our economy. It's going to be a disaster for hardworking families that are going to have to pay more for auto parts or getting their car fixed or, buying groceries or anything else. These other countries, many of whom are our closest allies, are going to retaliate against us. It's just simply going to escalate from here. I talked to farmers out in California who still haven't recovered the market share they lost during the first Trump administration from the ill-fated tariffs then. So this is going to be really disastrous. A massive self-inflicted wound on our economy from a president who campaigned on lowering prices, but is in fact pushing them through the roof.
Senator, you are not the only senator who's been speaking with farmers in your home state. And lest anyone think that these are just Democratic talking points, I want you to take a listen to Senator Tom Tillis talking about what Trump's tariffs are going to mean for farmers in his state of North Carolina.
Anyone who says there may be a little bit of pain before we get things right need to talk about farmers who are one crop away from bankruptcy. They don't have time, so we've got to be crisp on this implementation. Otherwise, we could do damage that's irreparable to farmers.
Crisp on the implementation is one thing. What else are you hearing from your Republican colleagues, their concerns about these tariffs?
Oh, I think their concerns are profound, not just with how much pain is going to be inflicted on their constituents, but what it's going to mean for them politically. We may have a vote shortly by Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine, that will give Congress a chance to push back against some of these tariffs, particularly those targeting our Canadian neighbors. And I think many of the Republicans are inclined to support it. We'll see how many are actually willing to put their votes where their private comments are. But I think that this is a broadly held view. Certainly, as we've seen before, a lot of Republicans are simply going to fall in line. But with the pain that's going to be resulting from this, they're going to hear an earful from their constituents. It's why so many Republicans are being told, don't have town halls, because people are really unhappy with what they're doing.
Senator, you referenced Donald Trump campaigning on lower prices, and that was certainly one piece of his pitch to voters. He also pitched voters on this idea that America wasn't safe. And so it is striking to me that he has accomplished neither bringing costs down nor actually making this country safer. If anything, to the contrary, his administration has imperiled national security. We're now learning this about Signalgate. It is from Politico that you had National Security Advisor Mike Waltz's team regularly setting up chats on Signal to coordinate official work on issues that included Ukraine, China, Gaza, the Middle East, Africa, Europe. That is according to 4 people who've been personally added to Signal chats. 2 of the people said they have direct knowledge of at least 20 such chats. All 4 said they saw instances of sensitive information being discussed. So, Senator, it was not simply them talking about Yemen, which is dangerous. It was 20 other concurrent chats.
It really is mind-blowing that they were so reckless with our national security to engage in these kind of conversations, many of them using apparently their personal phones, but regardless using a commercial app. We have some very sophisticated adversaries, probably no one as sophisticated in terms of hacking as China. It is hard for me to believe, given the breadth of people that were included just on that Houthi chat, that China hasn't penetrated some of these phones, which means that whatever these conversations were that were going on, China may now be privy to. We have to assume, and I say this as the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, you have to assume that all of these conversations have been compromised. Now, maybe some of them haven't, but in order to, protect sources and methods, you have to assume the worst, which means that they're going to have to now, if they're doing their jobs, do the painstaking work of going through every source that might have been revealed from these reckless conversations on a commercial app. And what makes this even more adding insult to injury is this was the crowd that relentlessly hounded Hillary Clinton over her emails, when what we're seeing here is so far worse than anything that they were complaining about back then. The scope of this, we still don't fully understand.
These are unserious people in our White House who are causing very serious damage, and it is upon us to call it out. And it's going to get easier every day when people are going to the grocery store or checking their 401k and seeing just how damaging this administration is. But still, we have to call it out every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.